What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 10x Recruiting brought to you by Metaview. So on today's episode, we have Shiv Brodie on the show. And Shiv is leading go-to-market hiring at Metaview. And Shiv is our next guest in our How I AI series. So there are two takeaways from this episode. Number one is that custom GPTs create an unfair advantage. Shiv is going to walk us through how she built a tailored GPT to instantly spot gaps in job descriptions. It anticipates candidate questions and generates Boolean search strings. The second takeaway for me is that AI helps you start at the 50-yard line instead of the 1-yard line. So I had this thought about AI that it should be doing everything. And in fact, I think we will get there. But today we should be thinking about AI as how can we take shortcuts to make our lives easier, to start at the 50-yard line or even on the opponent's 20-yard line in the red zone versus starting at the 1-yard line with 99 yards to go. So as a reminder for these episodes, you are going to want to watch this if you can. Two reasons why is number one, Shiv is going to show her screen to show exactly how she uses AI so you can see it with your own eyes. And number two, I'm sporting a new mustache and I want your feedback on it. So without further ado, here's our latest in the 10x Recruiting series called How I AI with Shiv Brodie. Hope you guys enjoy it. This is 10x Recruiting, a podcast from Metaview. Let's get after it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 10x Recruiting brought to you by Metaview. Today, we have Shiv Brodie on our continued series of How I AI. So Shiv, you going to give us a nice show and tell today of how you use AI in your recruiting flow?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the way that I've thought about this is kind of breaking down each step. So at the moment, I am partnered with Metaview to scale go-to-market. So everything from sourcing candidates, engaging candidates, assessing candidates, and then kind of some of the follow-up, and also thinking about talent strategy as well. So if we start with sourcing, let me just share my screen. So I use ChatGPT all the time for everything from small queries to big queries. And I like to think of it as an assistant, a technical assistant, a teammate. More recently, I've tried to be a bit more organized about this. And so I have, from a search perspective, created my own GPT here, which I used ChatGPT to do. Basically, here is where I've got the instructions. So what I wanted to be able to do was put some information in and start thinking about what's missing, what are candidates going to be asking, start to think early around Boolean searches, candidate archetypes, that kind of thing. And let's run it and then I can talk about some things that I've learned along the way in terms of doing this. So we're hiring for a biz ops lead at the moment. So if I put that in here.
So what are you uploading at the moment, Shiv?
Just the job description for the biz ops lead.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And you've given it no prompt other than that. You've just it knows it knows in the system prompt you've created that all it needs is a job description. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so then it starts coming out with gaps in the job description, candidates' questions.
This is the GPT's assessment of what questions the candidates are likely to ask.
Yes, exactly. And then a few ideas around other job titles.
Cool.
And then Boolean examples.
Oh, wow.
And I think, so I think this is helpful as a starting point working with your hiring manager. I think when I was doing this, I've run it loads and loads of different times, and you have to be very prescriptive. Otherwise, it will just pick the obvious stuff, you haven't included a salary or is this role hybrid? So when I went back into the kind of back end, I sort of asked it to make some assumptions around, assume that the candidate is intelligent and deeply curious and wants to understand the role and the intersection between that and the business. And then it comes out with much more helpful information. So it's trial and error.
So this is essentially you get a job description from a hiring manager, and the first thing you do is you throw it in here. And the reason why is because we want to make sure that we're proactively thinking about any gaps. And if you can scroll down for me on this, any gaps in the job description that candidates might have questions about. questions that they might have. And then so scroll up a little bit. This next piece is really interesting, which is this is now, okay, we're going to go out and start sourcing. And so what are analogous titles that might have like, our candidate in there? What are keywords to include? So keep going down. And then you said even Boolean search? Yeah. And then even Boolean examples.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Can we look at this, how you made this happen in the back end of the search system in GPT?
Yeah. Let me do that.
Yeah, because that's sick. Because like how I do this today is, I'll just get a job description, I'll scan it myself, and then I'll like use my own pattern matching and experience to be like, like, let me just kind of like start down slow. I usually kind of like slowly crawl the rabbit hole to then just like gather information. Oh, like that's interesting from this candidate. Let me filter that in. But this is actually like, instead of starting at the 1 yard line with 99 yards to go, this is like starting at like the 50. And this is like really like getting like a significant portion of the research done before you start like actually getting into LinkedIn.
And so I think this is the first time in this series that someone is actually going to take us through the actual configuration of one of these custom GPTs. So I'm just going to give people that are viewing like a bit of an idea of what we're seeing here. It'll be obvious to some, but maybe not to others. So if you see essentially Shiv is in this custom GPT section. The custom GPT has a name, and then the instruction box is like the key. And if you scroll down a little bit further on the left-hand panel, Shiv, no, sorry, on the actual panel of like, so I can see the other sections of the custom GPT. Yeah, and you can see also there's the knowledge section. So those are like the two key things when someone's creating a custom GPT is what are the instructions that you're giving to the GPT, which is essentially a way of saying, Shiv has all this knowledge about how to do this. She doesn't want to actually have to do the writing up of this document every time. She just wants to give you, AI, the instructions one time. And obviously she's given great instructions because she got a really good output. But the other thing some people will do within these custom GPTs, which wouldn't be appropriate for the one that Shiv has built here, but will be in others, is actually upload files as knowledge. So I think we heard that in Joe's episode, if folks listen to that, where he had talked about, he uploaded, HP's sort of, or Humane's, cultural values as part of the knowledge base for the GPT as well. So those are like the two areas where you are essentially giving this GPT custom context. That means it's going to give you a different output than if you just ask ChatGPT yourself. So where's the bit where's the instruction to create the Boolean? Oh, here we go. So basically the AI has interpreted as suggest a targeted LinkedIn sourcing strategy. And it's actually sort of, it's gone above and beyond and also created the Boolean string for you. What you might also find, Shiv, is maybe if you've had sort of interactions with it in the past and you've said to it, okay, cool, can you give me a Boolean string?
Exactly.
It might have then added that to its memory and just does it automatically.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. And I think, look, this is where I've put in here really specifically, do not include salary, location. I will keep adding to this every time I use it. So, okay, so then still on sourcing, I will share my screen again and this time go to Perplexity. So this is when I get into sourcing and then start thinking about specifically trying to understand companies where candidates are currently working for, or actually like, let's just start at the beginning. So again, I've created some spaces. So here, right at the start, you might think, well, let's just start with competitors. So you can just type in Metaview and then you've got competitors here. And I specifically asked this to pull out just competitors, funding stage, location, and headcount so that I can start targeting the most relevant ones.
So do you have something on the back end here, similarly, like with a custom GPT?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very simple. But here I put just funding rounds, headcount, and growth in tables.
So what would the situation be here where you're in the context of your sourcing journey? What would you be coming here to do? Let's imagine we say, hey, Shiv, we want to work with you. We're going to hire a VP of sales. What are you going to put in this box?
This is like early, probably early and obvious, and then it will build over time. So first of all, it's looking at who are the competitors of the company that you're working with.
Okay, fine.
Then you might start to think about like parable businesses and products. So you put one in, then you might start thinking about similar stage businesses, although I actually haven't fed that into here, but that might be something to think
for example, if I say to you, Shiv, listen, we really want to hire a VP of sales, and like I'd love it if it was someone who worked at Figma, let's say, you would say, well, Carl, I'm probably not going to get someone exactly from Figma. I'll try, but like, here's some other companies, and you'd come and like put Figma in here in order to get some other ideas. Okay.
Let's try it.
Yeah, you're in the company Intel one. That's right.
Okay, that's the company Intel one. So let's put Figma in here. Yeah, and then you've got some competitors and stage and location and everything else. So we might just start targeting those.
Makes sense.
And then company Intel here is, I think there are other tools, for example, like Sourcewell, where the campaign builder sits over the candidate and you can already see what stage their company is. But this is just helpful if there's something that, if you don't have that and you just want to see someone's working at Metaview.
And why did you use Perplexity here instead of ChatGPT?
Because ChatGPT is not accurate enough. And I've been playing around with trying to, so for example, I built a spreadsheet that linked ChatGPT to that. So you could just put the company in and it would pull out all this information, but it's not relevant. It's so old, so it's not useful. And then I tried to do that with Perplexity, but that you can't access the API. I've tried to do it with Apollo. I haven't quite figured it out. So at the moment, this is kind of where I've got to.
Got it.
So now I'm going to start talking about engaging candidates. So we've found loads of candidates. We've sourced loads of great candidates. How are we going to engage them? And I think if we think about context here, whether it's Metaview, whether it's another growth stage business, we're looking for individuals that can really thrive in that environment, and therefore they're few and far between. They're getting outreach from everyone. So how can you cut through the noise and leverage AI to do that? And so I'm going to share my screen again, and I am going to talk about Metaview. I'm going to talk about Metaview in different stages, but I'm going to talk about engaging here. This is an example interview in the Metaview platform. If I think about engaging candidates, if you've got Metaview, I would encourage you to have it on your intake call with your hiring manager, because then you can immediately go into snippets and you can create a video of the hiring manager selling the job directly. So you just go into create snippet, find the text that you want. Oh, don't know what happened there. Find the text that you want snippet to cover, press enter, and then you've got that section, and then you can share it with candidates not necessarily straight away. I think it's probably something that I would leverage at like second or third outreach, but it's, ultimately the hiring manager is going to be more compelling than selling the role than you are.
I love that idea on using the hiring managers, like a video of the hiring manager in the second or third outreach, right? Because Sile, we just had Steve from Gem on, who was like, you need to have at least 4 touch points. And I think a lot of people struggle with like, well, what comes in the other touch points? Like I can come up with the first 2. What about 3 and 4? And this is actually a great use case for that.
Yeah. And I also think, depending on the hiring manager, if you don't do it straight away when you're doing the intake call, it's another thing on their to-do list that they're not going to prioritize. Whereas if you can just do it within all of that, they're not even thinking about it. They're much more natural. They're going to sell the role much more effectively. And it's just better content to share. I think it depends on your budget as a hiring team, because like I say, there are lots of automation tools out there that will do parts of this. But this is, I'm just showcasing, it's a tool called Lavender. And here we go. And I think it's about $19 a month. And it's basically an email coach. So you can sit it on your emails. I've obviously used the coach, so this is not the best example, but you can start looking at things that you might want to change in your outreach. And also what I love about it is you can see if people have opened your email, and you can see if they've opened it 8 times. And so then you can prioritize those are the people that you're going to call first.
Do you configure the coach, Shiv? Like how, like you might believe a certain type of coaching is better for you than someone who's writing, I don't know, like emails to risk analyst or something, I don't know, to make it up. Like do you configure how the coach coaches you?
That would probably be a really smart thing to do, and I haven't done that. No, I'm sure you can.
The reason I was asking is I was curious, if you scroll up where it says cold and pest practice and ellipsis.
Oh yeah.
What is this? Okay, this is just giving you this
Oh, wow.
So then you can, okay, there. So yeah, you can choose the algorithm to coach based on. So you're using best practices, which makes total sense. But if you change the algorithm to
Oh, yeah, that's
personalize,
cool.
you could then go and like tell it how you like to be coached. And I guess that's even if you're a recruiting leader watching this and you're like, well, I'm by far the best at outreach in this company, but unfortunately don't have time to do outreach because I'm the leader, then maybe you can actually go and build one of these coaches and then make everyone in your team use it.
Love that. Okay, I'm going to do that.
That's
Right. Okay. Now we're going to go into assessing candidates. So I'm going to go back into Metaview, the right one this time. There we go. I've been using Metaview for 2 years. So I have loved the product for 2 years. And I think in terms of immediate value, obviously saves a ton of time writing up notes. But let me just go. I think in terms of assessing candidates, what I found really useful now hiring for go-to-market talent at Metaview is really using templates much more effectively than I was in the past. So, for example, here, I'm going to have a look at this one. So, I think the way that I've been approaching templates more recently is not just thinking about hard skills, but soft skills as well. And we've obviously spoken a lot about this in terms of what we're looking for. And building out a template to do that, but also thinking about how do we use this to drive efficiency and learn as well so that we're all aligned. So this is a template that I've created.
Actually, can you just let people know what a template in your words, what a template is?
Yes. So normally if you use Metaview, it records the conversation and it pushes it back to you in a question and answer format. With templates, you can guide it to pull out the relevant information for the roles that you're hiring for. So you could create a template, as you can see here, for customer success, for sales. So that's pulling out the content from the conversation that's relevant for the roles that you're hiring for. And so this is a template that I've done for customer success. I've left this bit blank so that I can do a quick summary.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've gone through career history.
When you say you left it blank, you mean you've asked the AI not to fill in
Yes.
this. And you've said this is not for an AI to fill in, this is for the human to fill in.
Yeah, exactly. And then here, for example, career history, I've asked the AI to share a high-level summary of the candidate's background, and that will be auto-filled. Similarly with motivation. And then I think this is an interesting one because I think a lot of growth businesses talk about intelligence and hiring for intelligence, but are not necessarily clear on what that means for them in the stage of their business. I also don't think that AI is necessarily the right person to be assessing for intelligence. So, I mean, maybe one day, but not right now. So I have left that. So you can see these are the things that we're looking for, what we mean by intelligence. So clear communicator, fast learner. So this is helpful for me when I come back to do it, but I've turned it off so that AI is not doing that. And then we've got winning trajectory, growth mentality, acumen. So, and then flags. Flags is an interesting one. I think you have to be, I think what I have found really helpful, but you have to be quite prescriptive, is that AI will pull out quite a lot of positives. And so it's helpful to be quite prescriptive about, well, what about negatives within this context?
Yeah, I think that is a very, very true observation that we frankly build against that a lot, where the AI does have definitely a bias towards positivity, which is, feels like if you wanted to bias one way, you probably want it to bias that way. But, what you're really aiming for is neutrality on these things. So we hear that a lot. And so just to sort of maybe explain for people who are less familiar with Metaview, what's happening here. So as Shiv mentioned, whenever you record a conversation, automatically you get some notes off the back of it. But the reality is, when you're not having a conversation with a candidate in a linear, I'm trying to learn this thing about you, let me ask a question, and then it doesn't go that way. You sort of are piecing together information from different parts of the call, and then you're submitting that to your hiring manager. And so what Shiv has done here is she's created a set of instructions called a template to the AI about how she wants the notes written, literally the format she wants it written in, what pieces of information she wants, like in what part of those notes, so that AI can then just do it every single time. And the really cool thing about that, it means Shiv is still going to be very structured in her conversation with the candidate, but she doesn't literally have to follow the follow the sort of the script completely, because the AI is going to work it all out in the back end of like what information to put where.
But even with the flag style, like that's not something that actually is structured, right? That comes out throughout the course of a discussion, right? And so essentially what AI is doing is like being able to weave multiple bits of the conversation together to say like, hey, these are the things that I came up with. And obviously like the human is still in control here and can either add to it, subtract to it, or roll with it, which I think is a super interesting way to think about using the tool. I hadn't thought about using it that way.
Yes, such a good point. Such a good point. So basically, again, sorry to you're not actually asking the question, hey, do you have any flags? Have you ever not missed quota? You're just, and what you might actually find, Shiv, is as you use this template more and more, you might add more and more examples of what you mean by flags, right? Because right now you have like, hey, are there any flags? And you give one example, which is, did they miss quota? Obviously you'll vary that by role, but you also might find you add a bunch more of like, these are the things we consider flags. If things are adjacent to this, include those as well. And then you'll like never even have to ask about these things. And you just get exactly what you want.
Which I think will be really interesting, because I think with sales, it's more obvious. It's those other roles where it will be interesting to see how we apply this. Cool, right? I'm just going to apply. I just want to use the template and then just show a couple of other things that are helpful from an assessing perspective. So use template. Oh, okay. So that has all loaded. And then just a couple of things. So obviously I can go in here, I can type my own notes there. I can type in what I want to say for intelligence. I think could be really helpful if you're hiring is a team sport. And if we think about each of these things, each of these different areas, I can also go in and add a score out of 4 for each of these. And so we're all working towards the same hiring rubric. And then depending on what ATS you're connected to, you can then shoot these notes to that ATS. And then actually, I don't even think you need a scorecard anymore, because you've just got everything there. You've got your scores. You can put your overall score at the top, and then everything's there. There's no reason why every hiring manager, leader shouldn't be using a similar template, scoring in the same way, and then building data over time as to why you're ruling candidates out.
Love that. Makes total sense.
The last thing is going back to ChatGPT and just looking at that candidate rejection and thinking about candidate experience, and just really looking for efficiency gains, really. If I go back to ChatGPT, go to this rejection assistant, and again, we can have a look at the back end, but basically I've got a copy and paste here. So you could put in, obviously I would never paste an actual candidate's name into ChatGPT. So just put name, put the job title. This is a summary of some fake feedback. And then I've put warm, encouraging tone because it's a relatively junior candidate. And then you just put that in there and it will write an email for you, which is kind of summarizes that.
Interesting. So but you're still giving it the custom, like the things that you thought the candidate did well and where they fell short. Those are legitimately personalized. It's just the actual writing of the email.
Yeah, it's just the writing of the email.
Okay, got it.
And always take out that dash. That's the biggest giveaway.
We were having this debate because I'm a very M- person, and then some of the people in the company were saying that's very, very ChatGPT coded is to see those M-.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Apparently
I use it all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I never used that before. So, actually, one thing I was going to talk about, finally, just going back to Metaview and just thinking about learning. One thing that I have found really useful is, I think as working in TA, you have your kickoff call with a hiring manager. You get all of your information from that intake meeting. You then do a bit of calibration, and you're kind of continuously calibrating in terms of candidate profiles. But I think the collaboration sort of stops. Whereas what I found really helpful with Metaview is I can go in and watch all of Sile's interviews. I can see what questions he's asking candidates. So it might be that actually what I took away from the intake meeting is not quite what he's doubling down on, but also improves my sell. I think particularly with scaling businesses, like your product and your EVP is evolving so quickly that the way that you sell it is evolving all the time. So to be able to go in and see how everyone's selling it and adapting how you sell it means that you're continuously improving to do your job better. And I've found that really helpful.
I love that. Yeah, just because it's, every time you open up one of these intake meetings, I always get like the purple unicorn syndrome, right? So it's like, oh, all the amazing things about this candidate, right? And then we go out to market and like there's like that person like literally doesn't exist. And then as Sile like interacts with more people, he actually starts to like calibrate himself for exactly like what he's optimized for. But there isn't really there's usually not these intentional moments to like bring it back and be like, okay, like let's actually like, this is the thing that we're not talking about. And you're not catching it as he's talking to other people. So I actually love that as kind of like a backstop to make sure that like what Sile's actually optimizing for is the way he's interacting with people. The thing I'm taking away from this, Sile, is there's so much alpha in like your individual tuning. Like that's actually where the alpha is when I'm thinking about like building my own AI use case for when I go out and go to market and recruit. It's like, it's not just like, okay, here's the template, everyone runs with it. I think most people do default to templates, but there is so much alpha here and just these slight tweaks. Like Shiv's is not like, most of these things are 3 to 5 sentences. Like this isn't like, with all due respect, it's not like rocket science, but it's bespoke to you, and it matters for you, and it matters for your style. And that's what I'm taking away from these last couple conversation styles. Like that's where the alpha is like, I can make this thing just like Nolan, and I can make my life way easier if I put in even just a little bit of work and then tinker with it as time goes on. That's where the upside is.
Yeah, 100%. And like I sometimes you can be tricked into thinking that what you're describing there is like that alpha feels very thin and small. Like, but yeah, at the end of the day, as long as you're getting back to the candidate, or as long as you're interviewing enough as long as you've got enough activity, what's the difference? That's not the way competition works, frankly. Yes, we're all going to be able to like do all these things, but the fact is, if the only thing that way you can generate alpha is on that very thin layer, well then that's the whole game now. So like it doesn't, you might think it's thin now, but actually that's going to be like where all of the differentiation is in 6 months, 12 months time. And so yeah, I think you're totally right. That's exactly correct. The best operators will be the people who orchestrate AI by obviously like core adoption of it is the difference between what Shiv's doing and what Luddite recruiter who hasn't adopted anything is doing is like night and day. But even then there's going to be like actually this battlefield, which is, well, how does Shiv become 10x Shiv and Nolan become 10x Nolan? And there's Shiv really cares about like nice rejection emails. Nolan doesn't give a shit about nice rejection emails. So like he hasn't bothered with that one. He's got this other one instead. And like that's the sort of the marketplace now.
It really is, man. It's so interesting to see you use this, Shiv. And thank you for like opening up your desktop and like giving us all of your information, because I'm walking away from this being like, this is going to take me maybe like 20 minutes to get going. And then once you experience like one of these value adds, you're like, okay, now I actually want to put more time into it, right? Because it's like, it's not go from 0 to 100. It's just get started. You're going to get value. And when you get value, it's going to make you want to invest even more.
Totally.
Cool. All right, Shiv, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.